Okay. This is a special episode. I had one of my followers ask me about veneers. So I'm just going to let y'all see exactly how to read veneers because some people don't know how to read calipers and such. So this is a little tutorial that's going to show y'all how to read them. And let's watch it. Let's learn because the more you learn, the more you what? Yes, sir. Let's go. Welders life.
You see, when the calipers are fully closed, measuring zero width, you can see the places where you can take measurements. These surfaces are where the two parts of the calipers line up. You'll also notice that there are gaps in a couple of places on the calipers. These are not places to take measurements, so don't mess up by putting something in one of those gaps. Now, with the calipers closed, you can see where you're supposed to read the main scale. There are two scales on a vernier caliper, the main scale and the vernier scale. I'm going to erase the vernier scale and let you just look at the main scale first. You see, the zero mark points to the place where you're supposed to read the main scale. Right now it points to 0. Do you see that? Good. Let's read the main scale first. It's super easy. I'll close the calipers on this workpiece and we'll see what the main scale says. These marks represent whole millimeters. So the reading is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 millimeters. Just be sure to look at the 0 mark and not at this part. That's a common mistake and it'll give you the wrong reading. So the reading is 5 millimeters. That's pretty easy, right? Before we move on to the vernier scale, let me show you what it's going to tell us, okay? Let's say when we looked at the main scale, the reading wasn't right on the mark like it was last time. Let's say it looked like this. See how the mark is between 5 and 6 millimeters? It looks like it's a little beyond halfway. You see, the vernier scale is going to tell us almost exactly how far over the mark is. Okay, you're ready to see the vernier scale, but I'm only going to draw the main part of it first. Now, you see the marks number from 0 to 10. Each of these marks represents a tenth of a millimeter. They're going to tell us the tenths of a millimeter, and here's how they work. Look carefully, and you will notice that one of the marks on the vernier scale lines up better with the main scale marks than the others. Which one looks like it lines up best to you? I'll zoom in and let you look. Let me show you a hint about where to look on the vernier scale to see where the marks line up. You see how our pointer was a little more than halfway between marks? That means the vernier scale will line up a little past halfway. Now, do you see the mark that lines up better than the rest? It looks like the 7 is lining up. The 7 means 0.7 millimeters. But this caliper can measure even more accurately than that. I'll redraw all the marks and let you look again. Now, see that the mark next to the 7 lines up best. But what is the value of that mark? Remember how this caliper had a label that said 0.02 on it? That is what each mark is, 0.02 millimeters. Let's count up on the vernier scale to be sure we've got it. This 6 would be 0.60, the next mark 0.62, then 0.64, 0.66, 0.68, 0.70, then 0.72. The reading is 5.72 millimeters. Pretty neat, huh? I'm going to let you try a few. We're going to start off easy. I'm going to draw a caliper that only reads to the nearest tenth of a millimeter, just to be sure you're with me. I'm going to show you the overall picture first, then zoom in to let you see the vernier better. Okay? When you see Sparky's pause the video and write down what you think the reading is. The reading is 16.2 millimeters. Let me step you through it just in case you missed something. Here are the whole millimeters from the main scale. 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. Okay. And you see how the reading is just past the 16 mark? So we'll look to the front of the vernier scale for where the marks line up. And there it is, at the 0.2 mark. So the reading is 16.2 millimeters. Got it? Okay, let's go for broke and see if we can read the full 0.02 millimeter resolution. Ready for this one? Again, I'll show the whole caliper, then zoom in to let you see the vernier better. Here we go. Pause the video and write down your answer. Now, I know this is hard, so before I give the answer, I'm going to point to the place where the vernier lines up. Does that help? Take a minute and check your answer and be sure it's correct. The reading is 19.16 millimeters. Okay, let's try another one. This time I won't give any hints, but I will zoom way in so you can see the calipers really well. If you get this one, you pretty much know what's going on. Pause the video and make sure you can read the whole millimeters. Did you say 12 millimeters? Okay, let's do the hard part and read the vernier scale. I'll zoom in and let you take a closer look. But first, remember the trick? See how the reading is beyond halfway between the marks? That means we need to look on the high side of the vernier scale. I'll slide the view down there and let you look. Now here we go. Pause the video and look carefully. The mark that lines up best is here. Now, what number is that? This is the 0.7 mark. So 0.7246. The answer is 12.76. That's about all the time we have for now. Vernier calipers are hard to
So now
read.
we're going to learn about a little bit of stick welding procedures. You want to learn how to do a 1G because most of the places that you weld, they're going to be doing 1Gs, straight flat tests. Then they might do a vertical or a horizontal or overhead, but most jobs start you off with a regular basic 1G flat test. So you need to learn how to do your flat test welding. You need to learn how to do it. So what I would do is I would take a plate and I would just run just nothing but overlays. Just get that rod running nice and perfectly and get that down as much as you can. I'm talking about just sit there for hours and hours and hours and practice on your flat welding. Because most jobs that are hiring, they're going to start you off with a 1G test. If not, they will start you off with a vertical test, but the vertical test, you're going to make more money. So the first thing you need to learn is how to flat weld. Get you a nice long plate and just start running overlays like this that I'm showing you in this tutorial right here. Just learn this first. If you want to learn how to weld, learn how to flat weld first. Okay? Shout out to the channel that let me use this good vlog so I can teach y'all exactly how to do it. Let's
Welding is a
go.
process that turns two pieces of material into one piece of material. Gluing, brazing, and soldering just stick different materials together. But when you weld, the separate pieces actually become a single piece. This is done in two different ways. Either the materials are made liquid and then solidify together, or the materials are joined by forcing them together with a lot of pressure and sometimes heat. The melting type of welding is called fusion welding, and the heat and/or pressure method is called solid-state welding. There are lots of ways of doing both of these, and let's look at a few of them. Today we'll look at some fusion welding processes because they're the most popular. The most obvious way to get a material into the liquid state is to heat it up and melt it. But you can also use solvents to melt a material. In fact, you may have done welding and not even known it. When you use PVC pipe cement, you're actually turning two pieces of plastic into one by dissolving them and letting them re-solidify as one piece. But I have a feeling that you're wanting to know about welding metals, so let's look at that. Melting metals takes a lot of energy, and that energy needs to be focused on the small area we want to melt. One of the simplest ways of doing this is to take a fuel like acetylene and mix it with oxygen. Now this produces a very hot flame. The flame heats up both parts of the metal we want to join. The metal in these parts is called the base metal. The base metal of these parts melts and forms puddles. And these two puddles coalesce or run together into a single puddle. The welder moves the flame down the joint, and as the puddle solidifies, the two parts become a single part. Many times, it takes some extra metal to make a good joint. In this case, a piece of wire is dipped into the molten metal. It melts and becomes part of the weld. This metal is called filler metal, and it helps make a joint stronger by providing additional material. Using oxygen and acetylene to weld in this way is called the oxy-fuel gas welding, or OFW method. Now, electricity is another way to melt metal. The most common type of welding that uses electricity is called arc welding. Now, there are three kinds of arc welding that are the most popular. Now, these are shielded metal arc welding, or SMAW, also called stick welding. And there is gas metal arc welding, or GMAW, usually called MIG. And there is gas tungsten arc welding, or GTAW, which is called TIG. We'll keep calling these stick, MIG, and TIG for short. All three of these welding processes use a powerful arc of electricity to heat the metal to the melting point. The arc is like a miniature lightning bolt between the base metal and the piece of metal on the torch called an electrode. Now, in stick and MIG welding, the electrode is designed to melt and become filler metal in the joint. In TIG welding, the electrode is made of tungsten. You grind it to a point and you put it in the electrode holder or torch. Now, tungsten has a very high melting point, and the arc isn't able to melt it. The arc just dances off the end of the electrode while it melts the base metal. If you're TIG welding and you want to use filler metal, you add it separately, dipping it in the weld pool just like you would with oxy-fuel gas welding. A stick welding electrode looks like a little bar of metal about a foot long with a covering on it. You hold a stick electrode in a holder that has a clamp on it. In MIG welding, the electrode is actually a long spool of wire that's usually a little less than a millimeter in diameter. The MIG electrode is fed through a tube and comes out when you pull the trigger on the welding gun or torch. Now, I should tell you that when you heat metals up to the melting point, they tend to react badly with oxygen, water vapor, and other things in the atmosphere. And when this happens, the weld becomes terribly weak and porous, so that's hardly welding at all. So to keep the weld pure, clean, and strong, a shielding gas is necessary. In stick welding, the shielding gas comes from a covering that is all around the electrode. When this covering gets hot, it creates a cloud of shielding gas that protects the weld from contaminants. It also leaves behind a covering called slag that continues to protect the weld while it cools. And when the metal cools, this layer of slag has to be removed. In TIG and MIG welding, the shielding gas comes from a compressed gas cylinder. These cylinders store the gas at very high pressure, often thousands of pounds per square inch. One of the most common types of shielding gas is argon, sometimes mixed with carbon dioxide or other gases. And this gas flows through a hose and comes out right at the point of the arc. When you're done, there's no slag or other residue. But sometimes you may need to clean up a little spatter, which is tiny drops of metal that may have stuck to the base metal. Well, that's a quick look at the world of welding. If you want to know more, just let me know. I'm Bob Welds, and these are Weld Notes.
What's up? What's up? What's going on? Weldislife. What's going on? Weldislife. Check this out. I'm gonna take y'all on a field trip. Y'all wanna go on a field trip? Do y'all wanna go on a field trip? I'm finna take y'all to a weld store. Yeah. So get your notebook ready, get your checkbook ready, because it's finna cost you some money. Well, not me, because I'm special. But anyway, let's go to the store. Oh yeah, don't forget to get this Weld Nation, baby. Go check them out, get you one of these, tell them I sent you. Let's go.
Songs that made you move your ass. And for the last 300 months, I made 16 albums with me on the front, and they bump. Where you get your beats? I heard 93 rappers say bitch like me. 2 singers and 10 comedians, and I'm still gonna yell it every time you see me in. What's my favorite word? Why they gotta say it like shorts? Hopped out the shower, turn on the beat and start to jamming. Put on my pill shirt made by Mark Buchanan. I'm slamming Sugar Wolf cause he be a straight hog. Put on my Abercrombie coat to cope with the bay fog. I stay sharp, my job is peeling them top notches. I got biatches and Madrid these days. Cautious, gotta watch their every move cause dude, I got
fucking bitch after bitch, cause they all be curious. A young nigga down to break you for everything. And Mr. Flamboyant is a song I'll never sing. I'm not with the click shit, I'm straight with the sick shit. And any sap sucker, I'm ready to get with. Rubbed out, pressed
on my pill shirt made by Mark Buchanan. I'm slamming Sugar Wolf cause he be a straight hog. Put on my Abercrombie coat to cope with the bay fog. I stay sharp, my job is peeling them top notches. I got biatches and Madrid these days cautious. Gotta watch their every move cause dude, I got to warn you. And some of us roll no Zenith. Straight lace, triple gold, it's difficult not to jock. She's looking famous so you know I got to knock. Gotta peep the scene though cause with these hoes you might get played by one of them broads wearing weaves, bobs or braids.
But this is the bay.
Can of splatter spray. Hell yeah. Hell yeah, definitely. Now that we are back from the store, this right here is a 1G flat test. This is exactly what they're going to ask you to do. Most of the times at the top of the plate, they'll give you maybe 1.5 inches before they start shooting the x-ray. They usually shoot the middle of the x-ray. Not the middle of the x-ray, but you understand. You take the front of the plate. Basically what they do is they shoot the middle, maybe like 9 inches of the plate. And they'll leave maybe 1.5 inches on each end of the plate for, you know, starts and stops and shit like that. Sometimes you might get lucky, but sometimes they will shoot the entire test plate. So don't always get you basically a piece on the front that you can start on, and just make sure that entire plate is start porosity free, and just run that bitch. Because don't take my word for it. And that's on Weldislife. I'm telling you, make sure. And a lot of the times, they're not going to let you use these grinders. I done been to some places where they wouldn't even let you use nothing but a slag pick and a brush. Sometimes they won't even let you use a brush. And you bet not bring no needle gun. Do not bring a needle gun. Do not bring a grinder. They will not let you grind out that first start. They're not going to let you grind out nothing. They're going to go from the beginning to the end. And most of the time when you're doing a 1G test or a vertical or a horizontal or overhead, they make you back gouge the back, and they want 100% weld. So make sure that you're doing what you're supposed to do. I'm telling you, you will regret it. Anyway, I hope this tutorial helps you. I hope that you take heed to what I'm saying, and I hope that you practice overlays first. Just keep practicing them flat overlays for the 1G test, and then after that, practice the verticals. You're going to suck in the beginning, but that's okay. We all sucked in the beginning, and just go from there. Look at this tutorial. Practice it, learn it, and go from there. Weldislife. Let's check this out.
Songs that made you move your ass. And for the last 300 months, I made 16 albums with me on the front, and they bump. Where you get your beats? I heard 93 rappers say bitch like me. 2 singers and 10 comedians, and I'm still gonna yell it every time you see me in. What's my favorite word? Why they gotta say it like short? You know they can't play on my court, can't hang with the big dogs, stay on the porch. Blow the whistle. Blow the whistle.
Northern California. See you when I get there.
Hopped out the shower, turn on the beat, and start to jamming. Put on my pill shirt made by Mark Buchanan. I'm slamming Sugar Wolf cause he be a straight hog. Put on my Abercrombie coat to cope with the bay fog. I stay sharp, my job is peeling them top notches. I got biatches and Madrid these days cautious. Gotta watch their every move.
I'm serious, fucking bitch after bitch, cause they all be curious. A young nigga down to break it for everything. And Mr. Flamboyant is a song I'll never sing. I'm not with the click shit, I'm straight with the sick shit. And any sapsucker, I'm ready to get with. Rubbed out, pressed down, motherfucker. This rough life I can never get enough of. Riding, siding, whipping, dipping, 24/7. A nigga ain't tripping. Hoe steady, trying to do me. Stay the fuck back, you damn trap home G's. MD, the player.
What I've learned about cast iron is you got to get it to the right temperature. You have to get cast iron to the right temperature. So if what I used to do was I used to use an acetylene fire, and what I would do is I would try to preheat the part to about 300 degrees, and I would use a temp gun and everything else. So what I did was I have an oven in my weld bay. This right here is my oven. So what I like to do with this is I like to cut my oven on, and then I like to put my oven to about 300 degrees, and I put it inside of the actual oven. And then what I do is I make it to about 300 degrees, and I take it out so the whole part is basically already 300 degrees. And then what I do is I just weld it from there, and it turns out to be a good deal. So that's what I do when it comes down to my cast iron, and it works pretty good, you know. And I use nickel 99, and as you can see, let me see if I can flip this camera around. As you can see, the weld comes out more consistent. It just looks more detailed. It's just an overall better experience with the cast iron when you preheat the part thoroughly. When you preheat the part thoroughly, cast iron just cooperates better. But when you use an acetylene fire and you try to preheat the part, some parts are 300, some parts are 250, some parts didn't even get heated at all. So when you put it in an oven and leave it in there to quench maybe about an hour or so, it just seems like the part is heat treated properly. So the cast iron cooperates better. I mean, I don't know how you prep your cast iron, but however you prep your cast iron, put it in the comments and let me know, how you let us know, because this is the community. Let us know how you like to prep your cast iron, because this is the way I prep mine, and as you can see, it comes out real nice. There's no pinholes, there's no porosity of no types on here. It's just a nice clean weld. Anyway,